I'm so focused on the rugs that are from the 18th and 19th century because they were the last bit of history of a 3,000-year tradition where there was still a pure lineage that goes back to previous generations. Behind me is a beautiful Baluch rug, which is a nomadic rug that was woven on the border between Afghanistan and Persia in the late 19th century. And so this is probably about an 1880s piece. Many of the Baluch rugs used a camel's wool as the ground color. And camel's wool is differentiated from sheep's wool in that it spins differently. It doesn't reflect the light the same way as wool. If you look at this wool right here, there's kind of a dullness to it compared to the colors that are sheep's wool. They tend to be a little bit more glossy, and you can also almost see the little strands of hair in the camel's wool as opposed to the sheep's wool where you can't see that. When we look at the back of the rug, the camel's wool has gotten fuzzy and the knots have sort of opened up and gotten puffy, whereas when you look at the sheep's wool, it still held its twist, and so the knots are smaller on the back and you can see the horizontal weft threads more clearly defined, whereas here everything's kind of puffed up and it just has just a camel look. And that's one of the signals that it's actual camel's wool as opposed to sheep's wool. And there was a time when there were a lot of workshop carpets that were being made in Persia that were called camel's hair this or camel's hair that, but it was actually wool that had been dyed with walnut husks. And so you really have to have that distinct difference in texture in order for it to actually be camel's wool. The beautiful indigo, the aubergine, the dark aubergine, these are the kind of saturated colors that collectors really coveted, and you really don't see it when you get much later into the 19th century or into the early 20th century. Another aspect of weaving that they were really known for is this incredible flat weaving at the end technique. So you can see all these threads that are carried along the back that enabled them to do this amazing pattern. If we go to the rug next to us, for instance, there's an even more elaborate end finish. It's about 6 inches long, and it alternates between killam, which is a slit weave tapestry technique. So they'll do a whole band of just killam work, but then this little band through here, again, is supplemental weft. So you see the threads that are carried along, and it allowed them to create these little flower heads in this border that flanks the killam border. This is one of the most extraordinary shades of red I've ever seen in the Baluch. And once again, look at the work that they put into the flat woven end. You have the kilim technique here, and then the supplemental technique here and here.